This busy and somewhat strange Chalamoid to be able to come together and learn together regarding Yizkor. I want to begin first of all by thanking all of the sponsors for tonight's shir. Baruch Hashem, we had a number of families and individuals who sponsored this evening. You could find all of the sponsorship information as well as many of the names that were submitted, the beautiful neshamas who are being remembered. All the links have been posted in the chat. So again, we thank all of our sponsors for all of our various shiurim, those who specifically sponsored for this evening, and for all of those who submitted the names of loved ones. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the neshamas will have an aliyah, and all of the families a nechama. I was a bit conflicted with delivering this shir on this evening. And part of the reason for that was, there's no avelus, there's no mourning over the course of Chalamoid. Unfortunately, again, there have been so many levayas, so many funerals taking place on the days leading up to Chalamoid, of Yontiv, on Chalamoid itself. And what the halacha is that if someone goes ahead and passes away on Chalamoid, we perform the levaya, we perform the funeral, but the shiva is delayed until after Yom Tiv. And that is because on Yom Tiv itself, there is a mitzvah of v'samachta b'chagecha. There is a biblical obligation to rejoice. And that biblical obligation to rejoice really trumps anything else. It even sets aside, the biblical obligation to rejoice is so profound that it actually sets aside any personal obligations or any personal feelings of mourning or of sadness. And so, when I was thinking about this year, I felt myself a bit conflicted. On one hand, it's Chalamoid v'samachta b'chagecha. We don't mourn. And here, we're about to give a shir, about to share some Torah about Yizkor. I could honestly say I've spoken about Yizkor many times. Usually it's in the context of Yom Tiv. It's going to be on Shmini Atzeres. It would have been on Shmini Atzeres. It would have been, Mirsim will be on Shmini Atzeres. It would have been on Shvi'i Shal Pesach and Acharon Shal Pesach. But yesterday, I saw an incredible article in the Wall Street Journal, or it might have been, the days are a little bit of a blur. I don't know, I think it was Sunday's Wall Street Journal, or comes this weekend edition. And they had a profound article there about grieving alone. And the author, I can't remember the author of the article, but the entire article was about this idea that unfortunately, we're no stranger to mass casualty events. There have been many mass casualty events that have occurred in this country, many mass casualty events that have occurred in Eretz Yisrael, many mass casualty events that occur across the globe. But the difference now is that whenever there is a mass casualty event, most of us flock to our houses of worship, to our prayer centers, for some type of relief, for some type of nechama, for some type of consolation. Or even if a person is not so religiously oriented, we often find comfort in the arms or in the company of others. And there is this surreal dynamic that is occurring. That not only is there overwhelming loss, not only do we see staggering loss of life, both in our community, in the Jewish community, and in the greater world, but people are suffering alone, and people are mourning in silence. I know now we have, over the course of the last number of days, we have Shiva homes, and in a surreal experience, people are sitting Shiva all by themselves, with no visitors, with no consolers, with no minyanim. And again, people make do with phone calls, or people make do with Zoom or with FaceTime, and it's surreal. And much of the feedback I've gotten from many people, I'm sure some of whom are on this year, is struggling with the notion of Yizkor. Yizkor for so many of us is a cathartic event. Yizkor for so many of us is a time where we remember our loved ones, we mourn, but we contextualize that mourning within a community. I recognize that I'm part of something bigger than myself. I don't just exist alone. And that gives us, many of us, an incredible sense of consolation, an incredible sense of belonging, an incredible sense of togetherness. And amazingly enough, this year we don't have it. We know the halacha is one could still recite Yizkor on their own. Very important halacha. You could recite Yizkor in your home. It's printed in the Machzor. We'll put it out tomorrow also in the shul email. So one could recite Yizkor on their own. But on the other hand, what an isolating experience. This whole thing has been so isolating on so many levels, and it's isolating even if you're privileged to be in a home with other people. It's just isolating to be apart from your shul, to be apart from your kehillah, to be apart from your friends, disorienting. And now the notion that we're going to remember our loved ones without a minyan, and without a kalmale, and without a kaddish, and the shiva homes are empty from anyone other than mourners, and yard sites are observed in a dramatically different way. So I think it behooves us to spend a little bit of time focusing on this dynamic of Yizkor, and hopefully through the merit of our learning and through the merit of the tzedakah that we pledge in memory of our loved ones, their neshamas should have an aliyah. We should have a nechama, we should have a consolation knowing that we are trying to grow, we're trying to be better, and for many of us, it is the memory of our loved ones that fuels us on to greater accomplishment. So with that, I want to share with you just a few insights on the topic of Yizkor. If you take a look, the link to the source sheets was placed in the chat, so hopefully, again, you have access to that. And I just want to share with you a couple of very interesting sources to kind of help give a little bit more context to the practice of Yizkor. The Beis Yosef, Rav Yosef Karo, in his commentary, not the Shulchan Aruch, but in his commentary on the Torah, writes as follows. In number 1, he says, Kosev HaMordechai, Mashehurgulu lidar tzedakah b'yom kippurim avor hamesim yesh lahavi raya misifri. So he quotes here the Mordechai, and the Mordechai is one of the earliest commentaries that we find who speaks about this concept of Yizkor, and specifically the notion of pledging charity in memory of our loved ones. Remember again, if you notice, in number 1, he doesn't really make any mention of a prayer called Yizkor. Instead, what he makes mention of is the notion of pledging tzedakah in memory of our loved ones. And he brings a proof from the Sifri. The Sifri quotes a pasuk from Dvarim, actually in the context of Egla Rufa. We don't have to get into it, they're happy to put it on your sheet. But there's a notion, ultimately, if you skip down to the end of number 1, Kapra li amchol Yisrael elu achayim asher padisa elu hamesim alamed shamesim tzrichim kapara. So we learn an incredible idea, namely, that not only do the living require atonement, but the dead require atonement as well. Now, what the dead require atonement for, we'll see. But the Mordechai introduces us to this concept, namely, that the same way on Yom Kippur, each of us is striving for spiritual cleanliness. Each of us is striving for atonement, for forgiveness. I want kapara. I want atonement. I want tara. I want purity. The dead want that as well. And you know, the scariest part of death is not the cessation of life. The scariest part of death is that you can no longer do for yourself. The great gift of life is that every moment that you have life, every day you have life, you could accomplish great things. The sky is the limit. You could do whatever you want. You could be whatever you want. But the moment you die, life is over. Whatever you did, you did. And whatever you didn't do, you didn't do. And whatever you broke, it's broken, and whatever you broke and you didn't fix, you don't have the opportunity to fix it. And therefore, says the Mordechai, something amazing happens. The dead want atonement also, but the dead can't affect atonement on their own. So what do? We give tzedakah. We give charity in the merit of the dead, and that provides them with atonement. If you take a look at number 3, so in fact, the Darkei Moshe was written by Rav Moshe Isserlis. We know him better as the Ramah, who wrote the glosses, the footnotes on the Mechaber, on the Shulchan Aruch. So the Darkei Moshe wrote a commentary, and he says as follows, number 3, the Kasam Arivayil, the Lakach Nikra Yom Kippurim, Beloshon Rabim, L'chaim U'Lemesim, an incredible observation. Yom Kippur, this is very interesting, Yom Kippur is called Yom Kippurim. Now Kippur is kapara, is atonement. So if you think about the word, it's Yom Kippurim, the Day of Atonement. Plural. Why does it have plural atonements? So the Darkei Moshe, again, quoting other opinions, that says because there are 2 atonements that happen in Yom Kippur. There's atonement for the dead, and there's atonement for the living, and there is atonement for the dead. So this is where the concept of Yizkor originates from. Here you see the original halachic sources. Again, and if you notice, it has nothing to do with prayers. The prayer of Yizkor itself, as we say it today, the Yizkor Elokim Nishmos, and whoever we fill in, God should remember the souls of my, and you fill in your deceased relatives, followed by the Kel Malay, that came later on in history. The real essence of Yizkor is the ability to pledge tzedakah, ultimately again on behalf of my loved one. It's actually interesting. Now that you understand a little bit, there's a fascinating halacha. The halacha is actually quoted in the Rokeach, or we're going to quote a little bit later. The Rokeach says that normally when you make a pledge to tzedakah, so you have time. You don't have to fulfill it immediately. Like in general, whenever you make a pledge, you should try, in general, like a promise in life, you always should try to fulfill it as quickly as possible. But let's say someone pledges tzedakah, you don't have to necessarily pay it the next day. You have some time. The Rokeach writes there's one exception to this, which is the money that we pledge for Yizkor. That he says money pledged for Yizkor should be paid immediately. Why? Because if you want to delay your own mitzvah, you want to delay your own atonement, that's your business. But don't make the dead wait for their atonement. That money I give to tzedakah literally somehow purifies my deceased relatives. Don't make them wait for the atonement. But the halacha goes on. If you look at number 4. So the Medrash quotes, and this is actually a very moving Medrash. So already we see introduced this idea that the essence of Yizkor is not even as much the prayer, as much as it is the tzedakah that we give. What does the tzedakah do for our loved ones? So we saw the Beis Yosef and the Darkei Moshe both spelled out this idea that ultimately the tzedakah provides some level of atonement. But look at the wording of the Medrash. It's so beautiful and so overwhelming. Look what he writes in number 4. The Medrash writes, Lakach anu noagim lahaskir es hamesim yom kippurim v'lifsok aleim tzedakah. Our custom is to remember the dead on Yom Kippur, because remember again, the original concept of Yizkor is actually by Yom Kippur. We don't find it originally by the other Yomim Tovim. We'll discuss that we added on to the other regalim, the other pilgrimage festivals later on, but the essence is really by Yom Kippur. So he goes on, he says, Shekin Shaninu, Yochol Mishamei Solo Yoel Matzdaka. You might have thought that when a person dies, so any mitzvah you do on their behalf, the charity you give on their behalf, what does it do? How could I impact the soul of my loved one? My loved one is gone. They're not here. They're in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's eternal embrace. They're in a place of constant light, a place of constant good, a place of incredible spiritual beauty. But they're not with me. They're not with me. So how could something I do impact my loved one who is in the celestial sphere? And look what the Medrash writes. Mikan kishaposkin staka b'shvilam, motziin uma'alin osam kechetz min hakeshas. When you give tzedakah on behalf of your loved one, you literally extract them, whatever you're extracting them from, and you lift them up, and their soul shoots upward like an arrow which has been released from a bow. Miyad na'aserach v'noki. The soul becomes beautiful, pure, and clean. Kigdi umitarin oso kisha'a shenolad. And when you pledge tzedakah for the soul of your loved one, that soul becomes as pure as the day it was born. Umazin alav ma'in tahorin midli. The gadol barov hana kidag hanena min hamayim. And the wording here is so incredible. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu sprinkles water of purity on the soul. And the soul benefits from the act of tzedakah like a fish benefits from water. Kachu tovel b'chosha benare afarsimon ubechalav ubeshemen udvash va'ocha me'etz hachayim. The soul goes up to the celestial sphere, is able to go ahead and eat from the tree of life. Hanatov mechitzas hatzadikim. Incredible. I have to thank all of you for allowing me to give this share. I never saw this medrash before. I saw it for the first time this morning, and never did I see such incredible and overwhelming imagery. This notion that somehow when I give tzedakah on behalf of my loved one, their soul is immediately catapulted upward, cleansed of everything, as beautiful and pure as the day that it came into this world, is something overwhelmingly amazing. But if you take a look at the Rokeach says something a little bit different. Look at number 5. The Rokeach is Rabbi Lazar of Worms. You could see again, Rabbi Lazar of Worms, born around 1160, and ultimately, again, is killed together with his family in the Crusades. So the Rokeach writes as follows, and this is very moving. Uma moel ames shachai no sein tzedakah. So the Medrash is very beautiful. And the Medrash is very overwhelming. This notion that when you give tzedakah on behalf of your loved one who is no longer here, the benefit you give to the soul. And by the way, if you notice, there's no discussion about how much you have to give. Right? I want to be clear. This is not like a fundraising shear. Right? There's no discussion about how much you have. The amount is up to you. That's between you and your wallet, or you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It doesn't seem to be that it's the amount that makes a difference. It's the idea that you're doing something on behalf of your loved one. But the Rokeach takes this a step further. And look what he writes. Uma moel ames shachai no sein tzedakah ba'avuro. So the Rokeach is bothered by a simple fundamental question. You know, in Judaism, one of the most important things that a person has to live by is the statement of Hillel of Im einani li mili. If I am not for myself, then who is for me? Don't outsource your life success to other people. If you want something done, get it done yourself. If you accomplish something, give yourself a pat on the back. And if you fail, own the failure. Own the failure. Judaism is all about personal responsibility and autonomy. And that's scary, but it's also incredibly empowering. Says the Rokeach, what does this mean? I'm going to give tzedakah on behalf of my loved one who's no longer here, and they benefit from that? What is it? I mean, if I give tzedakah, I benefit from it. I mean, it's very nice that I want to do something for my loved one. That's beautiful. But how does my action here benefit my loved one? And this in general, by the way, is not just about tzedakah for Yizkor. In general, we do so many things in memory of our loved ones in an effort to catapult their soul upward. Says the Rokeach, why does that work? And look what he writes, number 5. He says, Ella, this is incredible, Hashem bochen libo sachayim v'hamesim. Im osa hames b'chayim, hayeno sein tzedakah. V'im haya ani osa hames ach libo b'tov. Because look, says Rokeach, what happens. You know, my dear friends, when you give tzedakah in memory of your loved ones, do you know what you're really saying with that act of tzedakah? If my loved one were here, they would have given this tzedakah themselves. So I am acting as their proxy. I am acting as their agent, as their shaliach. This is not my act of tzedakah. This is the act of tzedakah I'm doing on behalf of my mother, of my father, of my grandparents, of a beloved spouse, of a sibling, of chas v'shalom, a child. They can't do it anymore for themselves. They can't do anymore. Remember, like we said before, the scariest part of death is not the cessation of life. We believe in an afterlife. We believe in olam haba. We believe in eternal bliss in the shadow of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Death is not scary. It's the cessation of life and the inability to do and to grow and to progress and to accomplish. That's what's scary about life. And so, says the Rokeach, when I come to Yom Kippur and I'm asking for another year of life, so what do I say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Ribono shel olam, you know, if my parents were still here, you know they'd still be serving you. And if my spouse was still here, we'd be giving this tzedakah together. And if my child had been given extra years of life and had the opportunity to grow up, what he or she could have been. But alas, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you had different plans. And so your plans are your plans, and I accept them and respect them, even if I'm not always happy with them. But I'm going to give the tzedakah in the place of my loved one. I'm going to give the tzedakah as an agent and an emissary of my loved one, who I know, had they been given extra time in this world, would have done this act of tzedakah themselves. And in fact, I think this Rokeach is so powerful because it's not just about tzedakah. This is in general when we do things in memory of our loved ones, whether it's learning, right? Whether it's acts of chesed. So what does that mean? You do something here and it benefits the neshama of your loved one upstairs in the celestial sphere. So of course, yes, it seems to be there is definitely a dynamic like that. But I think what the Rokeach is saying is something so much more profound. I am the agent of my loved ones. I am the emissary of those generations who are no longer here. So my parents can't do for themselves. My grandparents can't do for themselves. I'm doing for them. It's not the pshat that I'm doing an act and I want it to benefit them. I'm performing their act. I'm performing the act that they cannot perform on their own. That's the power of tzedakah by Yizkor. But why Yom Kippur? So why? So remember again, I quoted to the original sources, the notion that we say Yizkor on Pesach and on Shavuos and on Sukkot, that's a later innovation. The primary recitation or performance or pledging of tzedakah for Yizkor was done by Yom Kippur. Why Yom Kippur? So again, if you look at the Darkei Moshe number 6, he writes, "V'chol bo kasav mashal anogim liskar mesim mishum dezechiras mesim mishaber umachnia libo shel adam." So the Darkei Moshe says something amazing. He says very simply, because there is nothing that humbles a person more than mortality. And on Yom Kippur, I need to be humbled. Because on Yom Kippur, I must recognize that life and death hangs in the balance. That another year of life is not guaranteed. That another year of life is not magia li. It's not coming to me. I hope that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives me the blessing. I hope that He gives me something magnificent. But at the end of the day, I know not what the coming year holds. So I remember the dead, says the Darkei Moshe. Because when you remember the dead, you realize that life is a finite, non-renewable resource. And I know not how much time I have in this earth. And that humility, first of all, engenders a real bakash, a real request for another year of life. Zachrenu l'chayim melech chafetz b'chayim. And if I get that year of life, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I promise you that I'm going to do something amazing with it. But Rabbi Soloveitchik, Zeich Tzadik Livracha, whose yard site is on Chalamayit, 27th yard site is this Chalamayit. So Rabbi Soloveitchik, in his commentary on the Yom Kippur Machzor, a couple of years ago they came out with the Rav's commentary on the Machzor. Rabbi Soloveitchik never wrote a commentary on the Machzor, but he gave tshuva drashas. So they took pieces of his tshuva drashas and made it as a commentary on the Machzor. So there's a beautiful piece, if you look at number 7, Rabbi Soloveitchik writes about this connection between Yizkor and Yom Kippur. He says there is another connection between Yizkor and Yom Kippur specifically. Every person during his lifetime is confronted by the tragedy of longing for one who was near just a short while ago and is now irrevocably gone. How intense is the desire to make contact with a loved one who is no longer here. One who does tshuva undergoes a similar experience. So Rabbi Soloveitchik over here, and we're going to see, he writes about this in a very personal and intimate way. This idea of these ga'aguim, these yearning for our loved ones, these people who we so profoundly miss in life. And Rabbi Soloveitchik says something amazing. He says, how intense is the desire to make contact with a loved one who is no longer here? One who does tshuva undergoes a similar experience. Man may not sense his loss, but just as one fails to fully grasp the horrible tragedy of the death of someone dear immediately after the loss occurs, only later does one feel the loss of God's presence and sense that the most precious part of life has vanished. The penitent then longs for the Master of the universe in the same way that a mourner longs for his loved one. So Rabbi Soloveitchik says in such a beautiful way, what is Yamim Noraim all about? For most of us, when we come to the Yamim Noraim, come to Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, the truth is there's a feeling of loss. There's lost opportunity, another year that went by and I still didn't accomplish the things that I wanted to accomplish. Another year that's gone by, I'm older, not necessarily wiser. Another year that's gone by and still unfulfilled dreams, aspirations, and goals. Another year that goes by, and I feel sometimes like I've removed myself even further from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Do you know what it's like to long for someone who you love? So we all know that. Because anyone who's ever experienced loss knows what it feels like to put your head down on the pillow and give anything for just a few more moments and dream about what it would be to have just one more day, just one more moment, just one more opportunity, just one more goodbye, just one more kiss, just one more hello, just one more embrace. So says Rabbi Soloveitchik, that feeling of longing that we have for our loved ones, that's the very essence of Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is, I realize that I've drifted far away. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I long for you. I just want you. This longing for a loved one, if you look at number 8 on your sheet, Rabbi Soloveitchik writes about this so beautifully and so personally. Just the word here about the Rav on his yard site. Yesterday was the yard site, but just to appreciate what a complex and incredible individual Rabbi Soloveitchik was. Rabbi Soloveitchik was part of the House of Brisk, right? So the Brisker dynasty, Jewish nobility, and Brisk prided itself on the intellect. Intellect is king. Emotion is a weakness. Emotion is weakness. And so Rabbi Soloveitchik he wrote that his father, Rabbi Moshe Soloveitchik, never told him that he loved him. Now the Rav wrote, he said, I knew my father loved me very much. But in Brisk, we never spoke about emotion. We didn't speak about love. We didn't share our feelings. We were all fine. We all loved each other. We all got along very well. But there was no discussion of anything emotional. Intellect was king. Rabbi Soloveitchik, so where did I learn the power of emotion? This is quite incredible. Rabbi Moshe Soloveitchik was a Rav in White Russia in the city of Chaslovich. And in Chaslovich, Rabbi Soloveitchik went to the local cheder, and the local Malamed was a Chabadnik. So he used to do something very interesting. So the Chabadnik, they were supposed to be learning Baba Basra, Baba Metzia. So the Chabadnik would have the boys open up their Gemaras, and when no one was looking, he would tell them to open up a Tanya. And the boys would learn Tanya. And when they saw Rabbi Moshe Soloveitchik coming, he was the rabbi of the town. The Malamed said, boys, quick, close your Tanyas, open up your Gemaras, and just start yelling. Just start yelling, because when you walk into a Beis Medrash, the best way to look busy is just yell. Just talk loud, be animated, and people are going to think that you're doing something. So Rabbi Soloveitchik said, so when was the gig up? He said that his father, Rabbi Moshe Soloveitchik, took the Rav, young Yosef Dov, to go visit his grandfather, Rabbi Chaim Soloveitchik. And Rabbi Chaim Soloveitchik began to faher his young grandson on the Gemara he was learning. And he saw that little Yosef Dov could not answer one question in the Gemara. So the Zayda asked young Yosef Dov Soloveitchik, said, tell me, what do you know? And Rabbi Soloveitchik rattled off the first 7 chapters of Tanya by heart. So Rabbi Soloveitchik said that he always had incredible gratitude towards that Malamed, towards that Chabad teacher in Chaslovich. He says, because that teacher taught me about emotion, and taught me about devekus, and taught me about passion in my service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I want to share with you what I think is probably one of the most, it's one of the most profoundly painful yet uplifting things. And it's almost like Rabbi Soloveitchik gives us a window into his soul. If you take a look at number 8, this is from Alat Tshuva. And Rabbi Soloveitchik is describing the ga'aguim. He's describing the yearning for someone who you love and you no longer have. He writes, "Haga'aguim lazeh shalach ve'inam kashim kisha'ol." The yearning for someone who you love but who is gone is more painful than the grave. It's more painful than the grave. Hanefesh yotzeis miga'aguim atshi efshar le'izgabra alehem. Even if a person tries to put a lid on that emotion, a person could go crazy from the yearning for their loved ones. He writes, Hinei lefi Rosh Hashanah zeh amal afana. And Rabbi Soloveitchik says, as I prepare my shiur before Rosh Hashanah, he says, I remember my father. And I always used to talk and learning with my father. And I would share my ideas for my shiurim with my father. And sometimes my father would love my ideas, and sometimes he would reject my ideas. And Rabbi Soloveitchik said, this year as I stood preparing, I thought to myself, if only I could share this to my father, how much he would have loved this. But he writes, Hi, kama hayisi nostim lu yacholti lahachlif imo dvarim b'chidushay Torah. What I wouldn't give for 5 minutes with my father. What I wouldn't give for 5 minutes to talk with him in Torah. What I wouldn't give for 5 minutes of relationship, 5 minutes of connection. Aval yadati, ki adamusa ahuva shahai krova kol kach elai, hi ata kol kach rechoka. But I now know that the Father who was once so close to me is now so far away. V'halev mispotzeitz miga'aguim, le'efsharos shel 5 dakot shel sicha. And my heart explodes with the yearning for just 5 minutes with my father. 5 minutes that I took for granted when he was alive. But what I wouldn't do for those 5 minutes now. And then Rabbi Soloveitchik goes on and he says something that it's heartbreaking. He writes, V'huadin. And for those of you who didn't have the source sheets are available. The link should be on the chat. If you don't want to look at it now, it's okay. But I would urge you'll look at this piece inside because it's so profound. V'huadin bi'imi u'bi'ishti. And Rabbi Soloveitchik says that yearning that I have for my mother and my wife is the same. Lefi yamim achadim shuv yashavti v'kasafti es drashas hatshuva hashnasis. Rabbi Soloveitchik says, just a few days ago I sat down to write my Shabbos Shuvah drasha. Rabbi Soloveitchik wouldn't give his Shabbos Shuvah drasha on Shabbos. I think he used to give it actually on Motzei Shabbos. And often he would go for hours and hours and hours. Tamid hayisi medabra alem ishti. This is so beautiful. I would always review my drasha with my wife. I would always review my drasha with his wife, with my wife. He haisol zeresli begibush harayonus tusham, and my wife was excellent with helping me to formulate ideas. Gam hashana kasafti es hadrasha. This year, Rabbi Soloveitchik writes, I also wrote my drasha. Kishani shoalosa ulai tuchli laazorli. Says, I ask my wife, maybe you could help me with the drasha. Maybe you could help me with the ideas. Shema kedai laharchiv o litzamtzim ra'ayon zeo acher. Should I expound on this idea, or maybe constrict or contract the idea? Shema lahandgish nekuda plonis. Maybe I should stress a particular point. Sha'alti aval kol ma'aneh lo ba. Rabbi Soloveitchik says, I asked her, but there was no answer. Efshar shahaya had kol l'she'elasi. Rabbi Soloveitchik already passed away. He said, maybe she whispered an answer back to me. Aval hu nivla imeshiv haruach be'ilanos. Ve'ilai lo higia. But her whisper got caught up in the wind that rustles through the branches of the tree. And that beautiful, beautiful whisper never reached me. Rabbi Soloveitchik writes about the yearning that we have for our loved ones. So on Yom Kippur, he explains that we recite Yizkor. We recite Yizkor, ultimately, again, because the same way that we yearn for our loved ones, there is a yearning for HaKadosh Baruch Hu as well. There's a yearning for God as well. I'm distant from my loved ones, and at times I feel distant from God. And my job is to try to come back, to try to make the way back, to try to make the journey back. And if I journey towards Him, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will journey towards me as well. But what about for Yom Tiv? What's the role of Yizkor on Yom Tiv itself? Yom Tiv is a little bit different. Yom Tiv is a state of Lifnei Hashem. Right? Yom Tiv is a time when we are already before God. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov writes about this, that on Yom Tiv, Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkos, there's an obligation of Aliyah L'Regel. There's an obligation to make a pilgrimage festival, to go ahead and leave your home and go up to Yerushalayim. So Rabbi Nachman writes in the Kutei Moharan that the same way we did this physically when there was a Beis HaMikdash, we do it spiritually when there's no Beis HaMikdash as well. But where do we go? Where do we go? Does my neshama go to Yerushalayim? Does my neshama go to Har HaBayis? Rabbi Nachman says no. In the absence of the Beis HaMikdash, my neshama goes upward. My neshama makes its way to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The dynamic of Yom Tiv is Lifnei Hashem, to go ahead and to dwell before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why, interestingly enough, we know that when Yom Tov goes into Shabbos, as it just did the first days, we don't recite Lichadodi as part of Kabbalah Shabbos. We recite a truncated form of Kabbalah Shabbos. So why don't we recite Lichadodi? Because what's the tefillah of Lichadodi? Lichadodi likras kala. Come, my beloved one. Whoever the beloved one is, whether we're talking to each other, whether we're talking to Shabbos, whether we're talking to Kadosh Baruch Hu, but the idea is, Lichadodi, come with me, likras kala. Let's go out to greet HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let's go out to greet the Shechina. That's Shabbos. That's Shabbos. Shabbos, you go out to greet God. Yom Tiv, you're already Lifnei Hashem. Yom Tiv, you're already before the Ribono Shel Olam. You're already there. Your neshama has made its aliyah l'regel. And so perhaps the idea of Yizkor on Yom Tiv is very similar, ultimately, again, to what Rabbi Soloveitchik described as the dynamic of Yizkor on Yom Kippur. That just like Yizkor on Yom Kippur, I remember my loved one because I need to feel what it's like to long for someone. I need to feel what it's like to miss someone. I need to feel the pain. I need to shed the tear about what I wouldn't give for a few moments of closeness. And then I need to take that feeling that I have for my loved one and I need to channel it towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu as well. Because all too often, God and I are far away from each other. And perhaps, using Rabbi Soloveitchik's idea, it's the same way on Yom Tov. You know, Yom Tov is a time when we are lifnei Hashem, when we are before God. Our neshama makes aliyah l'regel, goes upward, goes to the Shekhinah, goes to the celestial sphere. But yet so many of us still feel so far away. So many of us go through the motions. So many of us engage in the behaviors. So many of us exhibit adherence to the mechanistic details. But yet we're so far away. And so what do we do on Yom Tov? We remember our loved ones. We remember our loved ones. You know, Rabbi Nachman writes that part of Aliyah L'Regel, now that we make Aliyah L'Regel with our souls and not with our bodies, we get to go up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu together with our loved ones. So we remember our loved ones as a way of eliciting those feelings of longing, longing for connection, longing for relationship. And then we channel that longing into our relationship with the Ribono Shel Olam. Because, my dear friends, I would posit that the greatest thing we do for our loved ones is ultimately not the tzedakah we give. You see, the neshamas of our loved ones are with the Shekhinah, are with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, the closer we bring ourselves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is the closer we get to our loved ones. They're already there. I'm working to establish a relationship to lift my soul higher and higher. And so the closer I get to the Ribono Shel Olam, is the closer I get to beloved parents, to beloved spouses, to beloved children, to beloved relatives. The more you lift yourself up, the more you long for your loved ones and channel that into a longing for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the closer and more connected you become with those who you miss so much. And this is the dynamic of Yizkor. And this is why one of the privileges we have is that Yizkor does not require a minyan. The Kelmali might require a minyan, Kaddish requires a minyan, but you know, we're going to recite the Yizkor prayer in just a little bit. And that Yizkor prayer does not require a minyan for one simple reason. The ability to come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't require anyone but you. Having a minyan is fantastic, what we wouldn't give for a minyan. And having a shul is so spectacular, and how much we will learn to appreciate that privilege. But in terms of longing for your God and coming closer, you could do that all by yourself. You just have to have a desire. But know that when you do come closer, you connect with the neshamas of your loved ones. And the greatest chesed you could do for your loved ones is to spend time with them. But they're not going to come down to spend time with you here. You have to lift yourself up and spend time with them in the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we recite Yizkor to create a feeling of longing for our loved ones, which is then channeled into a longing for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that longing for HaKadosh Baruch Hu propels me upward and heavenward. And when I get there, I get to feel the embrace and the company of my beloved loved ones who I miss so much. But I'll just conclude with one last piece. If you take a look at number 9, in the Sefer Hasidim, he says something so beautiful. He says, Maaseh b'chasid echad shahaya novder b'shvil haneshamas, b'shvil krovav. Tells the story that there was once a chassid, a pious man, who would pledge money during Yizkor. And he would do something very interesting. He would pledge money for his loved ones, right, for his loved ones, and then va'achar kach noder hakol bisnam b'shvil kol haneshamas. Fascinating practice. He would pledge tzedakah for his loved ones who were deceased, and then he would make another donation. He would pledge more money for all neshamas, for all souls. And here he says something, Amrulo, lama ata osakein. So they said to his chassid, why are you doing this? I understand why you're pledging money for your loved ones, for your relatives, for your parents, for your relatives, but why are you pledging money for everyone? V'amrlei, מפני שיש מהן שאני נהנה בזכותו ולא אהיה כפוי טובה. Listen to what this chassid said. Because I may be the beneficiary of some of their actions, and even if I don't know them, I may still be the beneficiary of those of merits from those who lived before me. And this, dear friends, is another aspect of Yizkor, Hakaras Hatov. You know, parents aren't perfect, but the truth is, hopefully, they try their best. Maybe their best often is not really all that great, but most of us are only as good as the upbringing we received. We could try to become better, but that takes an incredible amount of strength and an incredible amount of resilience. Not every marriage is fantastic, and not every life relationship is as we thought it would be. But at the end of the day, we must always have incredible gratitude to those who came before us. So many of us have brachos in life. Do you ever stop for a moment and ask yourself, why do I have this bracha? Why do I think during these days, I know I find myself asking this question often, because I think we're just all in a more contemplative state. Why do I have this bracha? Why do I have parnasa? Why do I have children? Why do I have health? Why do I have a roof over my head? Why do I have that? Something I did? Maybe I know myself pretty well, and I'm pretty sure I have not done enough good things in life to merit all of the blessings I have. So where did it come from? My parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, or maybe I'm the beneficiary of blessings from your parents somehow. Maybe something that one of your family members did, somehow that blessing trickled down to me. And so when we recite Yizkor, this chassid understood, give tzedakah for the neshamas of your loved ones, but give tzedakah for the neshamas in general. For we know not in whose merit we truly are the beneficiaries of our life berachas. Yizkor offers us an opportunity to be grateful for the blessings we have and to recognize that so much of what we have is in the merit of those generations who came before us. You know, it found it very striking that as we look at the mounting death toll from COVID-19, from coronavirus, it's striking how this disease spares no demographic, no age group, no ethnicity, no race, no religion. But I found it especially heartbreaking that over Yom Tiv, and really over Chol Hamoed as well, especially coming out of New York and New Jersey, you saw the death of many elderly people, and many of them survivors, many of them European Jews, a generation coming to an end. And it struck me that those people are the reason that so many of us are here today. Because in those faces, those wizened old faces, I saw the faces of my grandparents, Zichrono Livracha, and my great-grandparents who I never had the privilege to know, and my great-great-grandparents. Somehow I just saw their faces in those holy Jews. There are generations that are coming to an end, literally as we speak. And it behooves us to use Yizkor as an opportunity to express our gratitude to those who came before us and in whose merit we exist today. So if we bring this all together, Yizkor offers us an opportunity to remember our loved ones, create a sense of longing. That sense of longing creates a sense of humility, reminds us of our own mortality. And being reminded of your mortality is a great gift, because when you are reminded of your mortality, it energizes you to live better, to do better, to be more, and to accomplish more. Yizkor engenders within us a sense of longing for our loved ones. And hopefully, again, we channel that sense of longing into a sense of longing for God. And when we long for God, we do that together with our loved ones, and we're all together once again. The tzedakah that we give is not simply a nice thing we do in memory, but the tzedakah that we give offers us the opportunity to do the work in this world, that our loved ones can no longer do. And finally, Yizkor offers us the opportunity to go ahead and express our gratitude to those who came before us. Even if my parents weren't perfect, they tried. And even if previous generations didn't do everything they were supposed to do, they tried. And even if my beloved spouse, who is no longer here, failed me many times, they tried. All HaKadosh Baruch Hu asks of us is to try. And so therefore all we must expect of one another is to try. Yizkor gives us the opportunity to have gratitude to all those who came before us and to say thank you. Because of the life you lived, because of the sacrifices you made, I have the brachos I have today. I have the life that I possess today. And I am the person that I am today. So I stand before you, neshamas of past generations, with two simple words. Thank you. We should hope that in the merit of our recitation of Yizkor, and in the merit of our learning about Yizkor, that first of all, the neshamas of all of our loved ones should be gebenched and should have an aliyah. I thank all the people who sent the names of their loved one. They're posted on the shul's website, www.suburbanorthodox.org/Yizkor. You could see all of these sponsors of tonight's show, all of the names. And you know, there's something so beautifully personal when people send in names. We hear about Yizkor, we hear about yard sites, we hear about this, but then you see a name, and you know, oh, that's this one's mother, that's this one's father. So we should hope, I hope, that all of you, I'm blessed, thank God, to have my parents. But for those of you who don't have your parents, I truly hope that your parents and the neshamas have an incredible aliyah. I am blessed to have my spouse. But for those of you who recite Yizkor for a beloved spouse, I hope that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you some level of nechama, and the neshama of your beloved spouse finds rest in Gan Eden. I am privileged to have all of my children. For those who have to recite Yizkor for their beloved children, I know that is a wound that will never, ever heal. But I hope that you remember the happy times. I hope that you remember the brachas. I hope that you find the courage to continue the work that your precious child can no longer do. And if you do that, rest assured that the neshama and the memory of your child will accompany you every step of the way. But most of all, as we recite Yizkor for the 6 million Kedoshim, we recite Yizkor for those who have given their lives defending the state of Israel, the establishment of the state of Israel. We recite Yizkor for those who have fallen victim of acts of terror. What Yizkor has to really engender within us more than anything is a desire for Geula, a desire for redemption, a desire for Mashiach. Because now more than ever, we need Mashiach. We need Geula. You know, people think we need a vaccine. We do need a vaccine. But there's something we need even more than a vaccine. We need redemption. We need to bring an end to the suffering. Sure, many of you follow the news and you could see that in parts of Africa, where they finally thought that they had Ebola under control, the coronavirus now has somehow sparked a resurgence of Ebola. The world, the suffering is so overwhelming. A vaccine is an incredible step and we will welcome it with open arms. But it's time to open our arms and open our hearts to Mashiach and to pray for him every day. And let us hope that in the merit of our prayers, the merit of our tefillos, and the merit of our longing, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will finally give us Mashiach. And when he does, he will give us Tchias HaMesim, resurrection of the dead, together with them again. And we won't have to go upward, and they won't have to come downward. But instead we'll all ascend to Yerushalayim, to a rebuilt Beis HaMikdash, with the Melech HaMashiach Imhera B'Yameinu. Amen. Now going to ask Sammy Esterson to please recite the Yizkor prayer, followed by Moshe Abramson singing for us Al Rachamim.
הגנה לישראל שנפלו מות גיבורים בתפקידי הגנה וביטחון וכולן מתפללים בעדה יזכר זה תהיינה נפשותיהם צרורות בצרור החיים ואם שעל צדיקים והתגניות בגן עדן ונאמר אמן אני מאמין אמונה שביאת המשיח אני מאמין ואף על פי שיתמהמה עם כל זה אחכה לו בכל יום שיבוא בכל יום שיבוא.
Maishi? Is Maishi on?
Yes.
Okay, Maishi.
החסידים והישורים והתמימים קהילות הקודש שמסרו נפשם על קדושת השם אוי 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 יזכרם אוי 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 יזכרם אוי 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 אלוהינו לטובה צדיקי עולם יזכרם יזכרם אלוהינו לטובה שיער צדיקי עולם.
Thank you, Sammy, and thank you, Maishi, for the beautiful tfilos. I hope that in the merit of our learning, in the merit of our tfilos over Yom Tiv, all of the neshamas should have an aliyah. I take this opportunity to wish everyone a good night and a beautiful rest of Yom Tiv. And truly, with all of our hearts, we say, L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim habenuya. Thank you again for joining us.